Hi Art Nerds! Today we are going to do a marker tutorial on the basic planes and shading on the face. This is very similar to a lighting and contrast tutorial I did in Watercolor, so I recommend you guys check that one out as well. Today I am working with three colors, V12, V15, and V09. I'll swatch them for you guys, but really you can use any of the triad colors that I've recommended or any three shading colors of your preference. You can also do this with your favorite skin tones if you want to practice. I'm doing this with purples just because it's going to best demonstrate building up color. You may also want to grab a blender marker for this. The line art for this tutorial is available for my wonderful art nerds over on Patreon. So if you are a patron, you can check out this line art printed out using a toner printer. I printed it onto cardstock. You can check it out in my Patreon backer goodies, or you can send me a message and ask me to send you the link. I will also pop the Patreon links in the description below, but I will warn you guys that those are only going to be accessible to patrons. If you want to practice along, it will only cost you $2 a month, and you can join me at patreon.com/nattosoup and get loads of really great tutorials, early access videos, and bonus materials like this. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to begin with the face frontal view. If you think about the front of a face, it's gently curved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently do an all over fill using circular motions. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it much more quickly if you just want to like streakily fill it in. But since you guys are watching along, and I'm going to be using this as a demo in my Plaza Art Center coloring people with Copics class, I want it to look nice. So we apply an all over fill. Now I'm going to use the blender marker to start designating highlights. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to pick a stationary light source. We're going to have it coming from the top right on down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blend out a little bit using the blender marker, and also kind of blend down the center of the face. And that's just going to lighten the color up a little bit. So we've already started to establish some lighting. I'm going to continue using our same first color. We want to think about the top of the skull as being circular. So we colored about half the face and then brought it around and colored the other half, sort of leaving this highlighted. And I'm just going to use the blender marker a little bit just to soften that transition. So next I'm going to grab V15, and we're going to keep establishing the shading and contrast. And if you want to blend out, you can blend out using the pass color. So when you're developing contrast, you are going to want some areas that are higher in contrast, that have a starker shadow than others. For right now though, we're just blending it out. Once that dries, we're going to go in with our last color, Violet, V9. And blend that out with V15, which is going to leave us a very basic face. Facial form, sorry. Patrons are also going to have access to this finished document as a scan. So if you would like to have this for reference, again, you can join me on Patreon. All right, so that is a very simple front facial view. We could use white gouache, we could use a white signo to add a sharper highlight if we really wanted to kind of bring that contrast into focus. We're going to move on over now to a 3/4 view, and we're gonna use the same light source. We're just gonna keep the light source consistent since we're just kind of demonstrating where to place basic shadows on the face. So we're gonna start with V12, and again, I'm gonna do an all over fill. Okay, so we have a basic fill on the face. This is where it's going to get exciting because we start having different planes on the face. We have this area here, which as the area furthest away from the light source is going to be the darkest. We also have kind of the spherical top of the head. And then the bottom of the face as it begins to curve downward. So I'm just using V12 to add a second layer, and then I'm going to go in with the blending marker and just kind of push this back a bit. Then I'm going to use V15, and if you wait for it to dry, you'll get a harsher contrast. Just like with watercolor, when you do wet into wet blends, you're going to get a more diffused blend than if you were to layer it on top of a dry layer. If you found this video from being in my Coloring People with Copic class, let me know in the comments below. So we're going to go back in with V12 and just kind of blend that transition out a little bit. You don't have to. If it's more helpful for you to see the planes of the face without blending it out, that's fine. And I'm actually going to step back for just a moment. I want to try and blend that transition out just a little bit more using V15. That's the wonderful thing about Copic, is you can kind of massage colors back and forth until you reach your desired color. So I'm going to use V15 again because I really want this plane of the face here to be the darkest. So I'm building up my color, building up my saturation. Then finally, we're going to take V09, our shading color, our darkest shading color, apologies, and we want this to have a nice crisp contrast line. So you could leave it like that just to help you better understand the planes of the face. Alright, now we're going on to a profile view. Same light source. And I'm going to do a fill with Pale Lilac V12. Alright, so I have applied a basic fill. We're going to work on delineating the shadows with V12. Now, this is not quite as divorced from our light source as it was here when they were on opposite sides of the head. And we're thinking about the top part of the skull as a sphere that's had a slice taken off of it. So we're going to start by coloring in that slice. And then I'll work on coloring in the sphere, rendering it so that it appears more spherical. And then this part of the face comes straight down into the jaw. This is curved. And you add a little bit of shadow there. Darken it a little bit more in case that's difficult to see, and then I'm going to add some blender just to kind of push that color back a little bit. Next, we're going to go in with V15. We're going to fill in the slice. We're also going to fill in the jaw over here, curve it downward, and then color sort of the bottom sphere of the skull. And this gets easier the more you practice it, and it's going to start to make a lot more sense the more you practice it. Alright, so we're going to go in finally with violet. color in our slice, but I'm going to push that color to the back of the paper and then color in kind of the bottom of the skull and the jaw, and just bring it down slightly. Then go back in with mallow and push that back a bit. Now we have a 3/4 view facing away from the viewer. Same light source, staying consistent. And I'm going to do a fill with V12. So this one's a fun one for me because you not only get this plane of the face, you get the underside of the skull, the underside of the jaw, and well, both undersides of the jaw. So what we're gonna start is by kind of rendering the spherical part of the skull. And it's like they're facing into the light. So this part, for the most part, is going to be lighter than the rest of it. So I'm going to go in with our colorless blender and just kind of lighten it up a little bit. Maybe do another layer with V12 on the skull, just because there's some patchiness to this. I'm coloring it pretty quickly. And then we're going to go in with V15. We're going to color, let's say half, maybe more, because this is pretty close to V12. We're going to do a full layer here. We're going to do, and you notice I'm kind of scooping away from the light. And then we're going to color the whole underside of the face. Next, I'm going to go in with V09, and we're going to definitely color in the underside of the head with V09. Then you have a few different options for how you want to color the back of the skull, but I'm going to do kind of a circular shadow, I think, and blend that out, and then some of that and blend that out as well. Give that a chance to dry for a moment, and then go in with V09 again. Maybe this time we'll change our shadow up just a little bit. That's a fun one, but it's complicated. I think because it's complicated, that's what makes it fun. Now we have a 3/4 view facing over to the left. And while you're still kind of getting used to deciding what your light source is going to be, I find it helpful to just sketch in a blocky arrow just to kind of help remind me. And I'm going to fill this in with V12. Alright, I have my base filled in. So our light source is coming from behind the head. So it's going to do some rim lighting, which will be fun. So let's go ahead and establish our rim lighting on the ball and on the front plane of the face. And see, this is why doing color studies, doing contrast studies on very basic shapes, spheres, cubes, pyramids, it's really helpful because everything is built up of these basic shapes. And I have tutorials on that called Constructive Human Anatomy that you guys can check out on this channel as well. Then, let's see. Depends on how I want to do my lighting, really. But I'm going to fill this all in. And what's fun about this is you can get really dark with it, almost do spot blacks at the center of the face, and really build up a lot of drama. Which, if you're a comic artist, knowing how to develop drama, build up drama, that's a big part of storytelling. So I'm going to blend this out a bit and blend that out a bit. Go back in with the colorless blender, push that back a bit so that we get that rim lighting. And then finally we have B09, which in this instance we'd probably use pretty sparingly. So I'm just going to kind of use it right now at the core of the face, and I'm going to blend it out a lot because I know for some of you guys this seems kind of extreme. Just bear with me, trust me. And along the curve of the jaw. And then using B15, I'm going to blend this out. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, I do want to caveat that I am a comic artist and I have an MFA in sequential art from SCAD. So I'm not afraid of building up drama, especially when it comes to storytelling things. But I know that for many of you guys, something as dramatic as this might not be necessary. So if it is not useful for you, just store it away in your memory. It may be useful at another time. But you don't have to do it this way. This is a great way to build up that drama, but you don't have to do it this way. Or you could, and it could be fun to play with. So that is a very dramatic view with the light coming from the back of the head. So now we're going to do a profile view facing left. Establish my light source. And then I'm going to fill it with V12 again. Alright, we have our very quick fill. So like with this one, this part of the face, that slice from the skull, where the ears go, where the skull kind of flattens out, that's going to be some of our darkest area. And our light source is going to kind of curl around there. And then I'm going to use the colorless blender just to add some highlight to the back of the head. And then we're going to go in with V15. We're going to completely fill in this slice. And we're going to pretty much completely fill in the front of the face. And scoop it around. Now, if you want to blend it out, you can. If for your own reference you want to leave each layer distinct so you can better see it, that's fine. This could be a really handy reference to fill out and then post above your table. Kind of keep it in mind while you're working. We're going to go in with B15 again. Just kind of fill the face in a little bit more. Make sure we get those nice dark colors. And then we're going to go to B09. Now, depending on how you want to do it, you maybe want to leave a little bit of rim lighting on the scoop. Maybe the edge is just catching a little bit of the light. And then the front of the face. And how much of that you want to leave light is up to you. It really will vary based on the kind of work you're doing and what kind of storytelling you're trying to do with your piece. And then a little bit towards the bottom of the head. We're going to go back in with V15. Now, if you're a card maker or a stamper, this might be way too dramatic for you. So you're going to want to play around with your values and where you apply them. Or it can make for a really baller card. We give that a chance to dry and then do one more layer with V09. Just across the front of the face. There we go. All right, so that is profile view to the left. Next, we have facing away from us, looking somewhat down and to the left. So we're gonna establish our light source, and then we're gonna fill it in with V12. Okay, I have my base layer of V12 filled in, so we're gonna designate a nice highlight there, and then I'm just gonna fill the rest of it in. And then after I fill this in, I'm gonna go in with the colorless blender and just kind of lighten that highlight a little bit. Now, you might want to do a little bit of rim lighting on the face, again, for storytelling purposes, perhaps for dramatic impact, perhaps. It's really up to you. It's really what your piece dictates, what you're working on. We're gonna add that highlight to the back. Then we're gonna go in with V15. We're going to color that slice in. We're gonna work on filling in the curve of the skull. Okay. Now you can soften that if you want to using V12. You can leave it as is if you want to use this as a reference where you can really tell where the layers begin and where they end. I'm going to soften it. I'm going to do another layer of V15, coloring in our slice, darkening where the face would go, and then coloring the underside of the skull here where it would connect to the neck, and the underside of the jaw. Then finally with V09, I'm going to color in the underside of the skull. This and this would be the darkest if you were really doing like a contrast study. And you guys, like I said, can check that out in the watercolor video I told you guys about at the beginning of the video. I color in a little bit of the slice and a little bit of the front of the head. I'm going to blend this out using V15. Maybe I'll bring this up a smidge and then blend that out as well. Then I'm going to go in again with V09. I'm going to color in this part and this part. Okay, now we just have one more view to do, which is the back of the skull. Room to draw the full arrow. So I know you guys are smart. You guys know what it means. So we're going to use V12 and do a fill on the back of the skull. All right, back of the skull has been filled. So the light would be hitting the person's face. Maybe we would have just a little bit of lighting, maybe rim lighting, where only the rim of the object gets hit with light. Cinematography and comics are full of so many great terms. So you guys see, I'm leaving a rim of the lighter color, rim lighting. I'm gonna go back in now with our blender. We're gonna push that color back just a little bit. You can go in with white and really make it pop. It's one of my favorite things to do, is add like really bright highlights. And then we're gonna go in with V15. And it really depends on how you want to render the skull. We can do a circle, or we can continue to follow it like this. We can get really dark, or we can leave it light. It really depends on how strong you want your light source to be. And don't worry, if this is above your pay grade, you're not ready for this, that's totally fine. I have a tutorial on blending triads that'll kind of ease you into this. Then I'm going to go back in with V12 and just kind of push some of those colors back. And go back in again with V15. Also, if you like this concept but you're not quite sure how I'm getting where the light hits, I have some light and contrast videos on watercolor, and the principles are the same regardless of what medium you're using. And watercolor and alcohol marker, despite having different solvents, the way the light works, the way the layering works, very similar. Okay, so we're going to switch from V15 to V09. Color in the underside of the skull, the underside of the jaw. You might even want to do like the darkest highlight and then blend that out using V15. And I am not afraid of layers. That's why I work on thirstier papers. I love just layering, 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 layering. Then go back in with V09 and just kind of fill in the two darkest areas. Okay, so we could say that we are done, that this is finished, but you know, good enough is just never good enough for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some of our contrast just a little bit more poppy so you guys can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to go in and do another layer with V09 now that some of these have had a chance to dry, and I can get another layer in without it blending out. My mom always said I was a little bit of a drama llama, and I definitely do enjoy bringing the drama on occasion when it comes to art and storytelling, so she would not be wrong. To me, that is the most appropriate use of drama, is when you're telling stories, when you're engaging an audience, be it as an actor or as a storyteller or as a writer or as a comic artist or as an illustrator, or even someone creating a story using stamps and cards to tell a story. All of those are opportunities to be a storyteller and to bring in the drama. So I can even go in with a BB brush. This is the big Mama Jama, and just kind of fill in the very darkest areas. This is called spot blacks. It's another common comic term all about storytelling, lighting, and dramatic flair. Make y'all into comic artists yet? You might say no, but you'll be taking a zine making class before you know it. And if that sounds good to you, I have a Making Comics and Zines playlist here on this channel that you guys should check out. It's pretty good stuff. And then finally, if you have a white gel pen, white gouache, anything that can add some light and white to what you're doing, you could even use one of the pigment markers. It's kind of the only thing that they're good for. We'll grab one and be right back. We're gonna add some final highlights. All right, I have 3 white markers for a little bit of dramatic flair. We're gonna start with our white blender. And I'm just using this just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. What I love about this particular marker, I don't love the pigment markers. I don't think they're good. And I don't think they really consulted marker illustrators when they made these, but this thing's cool because you can layer the white to get a more opaque white, so you can actually build up your white layers with this. So here they're discontinuing the Winsor & Newton pigment markers. Pick up your white pigment blender before they are completely gone. And you see I'm just adding a little bit of white highlight here and there. Popping, making that drama sing. You can fix a lot of flaws with some good spot blacks and some good white highlights. People won't even notice. Then this is a white pit pen. And once this has a chance to dry, I can go over it with this. Okay, that should be dry because this is ethanol alcohol based. This is water based. We get a little bit more of a stark highlight with this. You can still build up the white highlight though, so I really like this one as well. And then if you really want, you can add kind of a rim light using a white gel pen. My favorite, my recommendation is the Uniball Signo, but I don't think that's necessary for today. All right, my wonderful, wonderful art nerds. That was a very basic tutorial on contrast and shadow using a very basic human head. This is going to give you a great starting point for where to generally place shadows on a human face. In my next tutorial, we're stepping things up a notch. We have here kind of a mannequin head where we're going to talk about shadows even more in depth. We have eye placement, nose placement, mouth placement, ears. So if you guys are ready to take your alcohol marker coloring game up a notch, this is a great tutorial for you, and I hope you guys will stick around. Now, the only way you can make sure you never miss an update is by clicking that subscribe button and hitting the bell notification so YouTube lets you know when I update. I have lots of wonderful tutorials here on this channel, from watercolor to drawing to comics to alcohol marker like this, and I teach in Nashville and in the New Orleans area. I teach comics, I teach drawing, I teach markers, I teach watercolor. So when I'm prepping for my classes, I end up making a lot of really great tutorials that I like to share with you guys. If you like what I do and you want to help me do it, you can join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup. By joining the Art Nerd community, you will get early access to almost every video I make, often months in advance. You will also get scans of these materials that you can either print for your own reference, or you can print the line art for this and color along with this tutorial. Working along with tutorials really helps solidify the information. You also get class access to things like my Making Comics and Zines class notes, presentations, resource guides, and more. So there is a lot of really great stuff for my art nerds. I am sincerely grateful to them for their support and their encouragement over the years. This channel would not continue to exist without them, and I am very reliant on their support and encouragement. So if you want to see me continue doing what I do, joining the art nerd community is a great way to do it. If you're interested in taking a class with me, I have a mailing list that will notify you when I'm in your area. You can find a link to the mailing list down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys will keep an eye out for my other alcohol marker tutorials. I'll see you guys in the future. Bye guys!